Hi, I'm Lara. Welcome to another video. Today we're going over 10 left-hand tips for playing ukulele. Tip number 1, file your nails. It's so important to have short fingernails on your left hand. Let me show you what I mean. This is how I file the nails on my left hand. Keep them nice and short, and I file them at least once a week. The reason why it's important to have short nails is because you play ukulele with your fingertips, not with the pads of your fingers. So the shorter your nails are, the easier it is to play with your fingertips. If you do have fingernails, and I'm showing you here with my right hand, it's impossible to press the strings with your fingertips because your nails get in the way. Tip number 2 is to approach the strings with a good angle. So you don't want your hand flat. You want your hand to be curved. This allows you to play with the tips of your fingers and to get more precision on where your fingers are hitting the strings. If your fingers are more flat, it's very hard to press only one string at a time, and you'll end up pressing other strings or muting other strings. One tip that I like to give my students is to pretend that your fingers are curving around a lemon. If they're curving in this fashion, then they'll come into the strings at a good angle with your fingertips touching. So try and imagine you're holding onto a lemon while you're playing. Tip number 3 is to play as close as possible to the frets. Oftentimes when we start playing ukulele, we tend to play between the frets, and this actually takes more pressure than playing right up against the fret. One thing that helps is to determine how much pressure you actually need on the string. So if we're playing a C note on our A string and we're pressing really hard, we can try loosening up that pressure, and eventually the string will mute. So if we have no pressure and our fingers just hanging out there, we're not going to get any sound. But as we start pressing more, we get a cleaner sound. So practice loosening up that pressure and see how much you actually need with your finger right up against the fret in order to get a good sound. Tip number 4 is to hide your thumb. Your thumb should be tucked in behind the neck, about the center of the neck. It can move around, so when you're playing, your thumb should not be coming over the top of the ukulele. It should definitely never press on any strings. So keep your thumb tucked behind the neck, and this will allow your fingers to get into the proper positions to play various chords. It also helps to lighten the pressure that you're using with your thumb. So there should be gentle pressure from your thumb and from your fingers against each other, but not so much that it causes pain. So as you play, try to lighten up the pressure that you're giving with your thumb. Try not to squeeze the instrument too hard, and that will allow you to play for longer periods of time without your thumb hurting. Tip number 5 is to rotate our hand as we play different chords. So as you learn new chords, try and determine what is the hand position that best supports the chord. Because if you have your hand in a position that's uncomfortable, it's going to cause pain. So try and figure out with different chords what's most comfortable. So here's an example. Here's a G chord. You can see the angle of my hand. My elbow is pointing away from me. If I change to an E minor chord, my elbow comes in closer to my body and my hand is at a different angle. Now if I go back and forth between those two chords, from G to E minor to G, you can see that movement back and forth. It's kind of a rocking motion, and it helps to play more comfortably. Tip number 6 is to maintain good posture. This is so important when you play. It allows you to play for longer periods of time, and it reduces the pain that you'll be in after playing. So keep your back upright, keep your shoulders back. If you're standing, it makes it a little bit easier to maintain good posture versus sitting. So I tend to play standing. I like to play and walk around, but some people prefer to sit. So if you sit, just make sure that you're keeping your back upright and that you're not hunching over your instrument. One other thing that's important to pay attention to as far as posture goes is your left arm and your left shoulder. So you want your left shoulder to be as relaxed as possible. If we scrunch up our shoulder while we're playing, it's going to create pain. So try and keep it relaxed, try and keep your left arm and left elbow moving around as you play. And if we look at it from a side angle, we want our left arm to be extended out in front of us. That allows us to get that angle of the fingers coming into the strings like we talked about earlier. So as we have our right arm tucked into the instrument and holding it in place, we want our left arm extended out a bit in front of us. Tip number 7 is to face the ukulele away from us. So what I tend to see with beginners is that they tend to pull the instrument up to face them because that makes it easier to see what their fingers are doing. But what that does is it makes it harder for your hand to get around the instrument and actually play the chords. So as much as possible, try to keep the ukulele facing away from you. You can see the markings here for frets 5, 7, 10, and 12. And most instruments have these same markings on the top of the neck facing you. This makes it easier so that you can see where your fingers are without actually having to face the instrument up towards you. You can keep it facing away from you. Number 8 is to pace yourself. So try to spread out your playing and your practicing over multiple days rather than doing it all at once. If you do really long sessions, then your left hand is likely to feel pretty sore, especially if you're new, if you're a beginner, and then it's going to be hard to play the next day because your fingertips will be really sore. So try and spread it out. 10 minutes a day is better than 1 hour, 1 day a week. Number 9 is to stretch often. So if you're playing for a half an hour, try to take 4 or 5 short 30-second breaks to shake out your left wrist, stretch your fingers, your wrist, your arm, try and move your shoulder around. It helps to keep the blood flowing. And if we play for a half an hour straight or a long period of time, our fingers tend to get pretty tight and that can create some soreness. So try to remember to take breaks and stretch. Number 10 is to protect your calluses. So as you play, you will develop calluses on your fingertips on your left hand. And this is a good thing because it will allow you to build some endurance and play for longer periods of time and have less pain in your fingertips while you play. Now our calluses do not like water. So water will soften your fingers, soften your calluses. You don't want to play right after your hands have been soaking in water for a long period of time. Similar to the rule of waiting a half hour to swim after eating, you want to wait a good half hour to play ukulele after swimming or after showering, taking a bath, being in a hot tub, doing dishes. Speaking of doing dishes, I always wear a dish glove on my left hand when I do dishes to protect my calluses. Because if I'm standing there doing dishes for 10 or 15 minutes and my calluses get soft, then I have to wait a while to play. So I always wear a dish glove on my left hand. So those are the 10 left hand tips that I wanted to share with you. If you learned something from this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for subscribing and for supporting my channel. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Now you have a lot of good tips for your left hand and things to pay attention to. So go practice and have fun with your ukulele. Thank you so much for watching.